Got a request about showing some books that explain composition and perspective. Actually, it was about perspective, but composition and perspective go hand in hand. So the first book is by Rankin Poore. It's called Composition in Art. And I have no idea when I got this, but it's a really good book. It's by Dover, published by Dover Publications. Dover publishes a lot of books that are public domain. So here's something about looking at an old painting and breaking it down to a rectangle, bisecting across and vertically, and putting in the big shapes of the man and woman with their arms out and the mirror in the back. And there's a dog down here. This is how you can understand perspective and composition in old artwork. Just break it down into basic, simple shapes like this, and you'll begin to understand why the artist placed things where he did. In this case, it's about balance, two figures on either side of that line, and the amount of, let's say, imagery on top of the horizontal line is the same as on the bottom, so it's in balance there. And you go through the book and you see a lot of examples of how are pictures composed. And looking at old paintings will give you an idea as to how the old masters composed their pictures. And that's mostly what this book is about, is seeing what it is that makes pictures great. So I don't know that you could find this in a bookstore these days, but there are others. This is a painting by Andrew Wyeth, the great painter. And here's the diagram of the painting. And it shows how your eye goes from here to the woman, and then up to the houses or the structures on the farm. And that's very important. Your eye would start probably on this gray neutral area here, and then go up around her, and then up here. Very important part of composition is how to make the eye move around the painting. In this case, there's the Stonecutters by Courbet, and you have one guy holding, looks to be a container that's got rocks in it, and another guy swinging a hammer to smash rocks. Your eye will start here and move across like this. And that's a perfect line to this guy swinging, and you know that that hammer's coming down this way. This is about moving your eye in circles around the painting. Then there's some color examples here. A really great book. So you can get a book about fine art paintings at the library or in the used bookstore and dissect the pictures. Just make a diagram of the picture, and you'll start to understand why the artist composed the pictures the way he did. The next book is called Lessons in Pictorial Composition, and this book has a lot of realistic and abstract ways of teaching you composition. And here in the table of contents, it's pictorial composition is most of the stuff, and then Introduction to Perspective are these chapters here. So with composition, you start with basic shapes: tall rectangle, square, horizontal rectangle. This is where you look at shapes and break down what is it that you can do to make a more interesting composition. In this case, you start with this. There's three shapes here. And then depending on how you combine them will make an interesting or a dull composition. Those are exercises. So this book has a lot of good stuff in it about how to compose pictures. What is it that makes an interesting composition? And these are things you need to know. And this goes for not just still pictures, but moving pictures in animation. These are all important things to know. Here again, you're looking at drawings and different subject matters and the compositions and how they make your eye move around the picture. It's like this one, your eye will move right up here past this boathouse and then into the water, and then you see more houses across the water. So many things to keep in mind when you're making a picture. Here's some more pictures. Street scenes. Where's your eye going to go? It's going to start here in the foreground and move to the back because of the perspective and the way it's composed, with the large house in the foreground, smaller house in the middle ground, and the smallest house in the background. This picture here, you're going to probably start looking here, and that's probably a bridge, house in the background, and then you're going to move across like this to the light side. You'll start with the dark to light, like that. Now we get to the chapter on perspective and how perspective works. One-point perspective, where everything just converges into one spot. Two-point perspective, where you're looking at a picture that has the vanishing points on both sides of the picture. And then moves into three-point perspective. Now you've got vanishing points that are off the picture itself. So there's one that goes up top. There's one that goes across. There's another one that goes this way. This is when your pictures get a bit more complicated. Important things to know. Sometimes you'll have a problem where there's multiple perspectives in one picture. So another great book. I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce his last name, but Luis made this book, Lessons in Pictorial Composition. Wolchonok. And then this one, Creative Perspective for Artists and Illustrators by Ernest W. Watson. Right on the cover, vanishing point in the middle, and it says VP1, vanishing point 2, 3, and 4. Reason being that the street is slanted down, the buildings are going straight up, vanishing points are at the top, and then comes down a little bit lower for the vanishing points of the other buildings. So it's a complicated picture, and this is what the drawing looks like with the shading and everything. So it's another Dover book. Usually these books are a little bit less expensive because they're taking information from many years ago. These books are in public domain, like I said, usually, and if not, the license to print them is very low. This is a preliminary drawing by one of the great illustrators, Albert Dorn, and I only saw a couple of his drawings when I was growing up, and finally I saw his illustrations as an adult, and I put together that he was an influence on the great John Buscema. And John Buscema's hands and feet drawings were like Albert Dorn's, and his postures. It was a revelation for me. So this book teaches you about how to figure out perspective. Drawing by the great Frank J. Riley. I think that's the same Riley that used to teach drawing. Here's something. Drawing of a horse horses with a carriage, breaking it down into basic shapes in perspective. anything can be broken down into basic shapes and use perspective to make it look a bit more natural and real. So it actually looks like it's in the spot where you're drawing it. Here we see a bunch of front-on shots of houses. How do you do that in perspective though? Where you're looking at the side and the front. So this book will teach you how to do that. Making up your vanishing points. Like this building here, Museum of Modern Art, vanishing points are down here and over here. So that means the roof slants down to that vanishing point and slants down to that vanishing point. You get more complicated with a woman standing by a stove, and there's a vanishing point way over here, vanishing point up here, another one over here. So this book will teach you how to do more complicated pictures. Drawing the cube in perspective. Figuring out your eye lines, eye level, foreshortening and convergence. Everything here is going back here to the vanishing point in the middle. On the edge, but in the middle of the picture. So here's that woman at the stove and looking at what room is she in and figuring out, you put the eye line, eye level right at her eye level, and then all the other angles follow that to make the room. And then you turn it so that, here's where you turn the picture. You start here, but then you turn it so that everything is on an angle now, and we can see how that looks in the room once we turn our angle and turn the back walls. So here's another great illustration by Robert Fawcett, another great illustrator from the magazine illustration days. In his work, he influenced Alex Toth a great deal. So you should look up these guys, Robert Fawcett and Albert Dorn, to see their artwork. They were just two of the greats whose work I really like a lot. Here we see drawing with these giant silos. We're standing back, so the eye level is here. The vanishing point there, that's the horizon. So everything converges down to that point. And that's how you come up with that drawing. This drawing also has the complication of having ellipses because these silos are round. And so the ellipses are different sizes, different angles as you move up. So there's a small ellipse here. You move up, it gets smaller. Here it's straight across. Now we're seeing that the ring that's near us on top as the arch, an arc going across the top. Circles can be very hard when you're drawing in perspective. So there's a whole chapter about doing circles. There's a real complicated one with two trains going over, one coming towards us, one coming towards us, arch bridge, steamship in the back. And another great illustrator, Peter Helk. So when he breaks this down, this is what's in the picture, but the vanishing points are down here and way over here. So to do the arch, he made these giant circles here, and the wheels on the train are circles in perspective. Here he's showing you how to do the train by making a rectangle putting a cylinder inside and then cylinders for each wheel. Everything is simple shapes. Once you learn that secret, you can draw anything. Here we have cones on top of this, on top of the building here, and a cylinder here. And here's the secret for getting all the angles just right. There's the cone. This is looking down on the cylinder. And then you can figure out where do things happen. On the cylinder, on the down shot, draw a line straight up, and now you've got exactly where they go on the cone. Lots of good stuff in this book. Highly recommend it. There's a street view that he's got, and breakdown in the sketch here. And this is it with the shading on it. But this is the breakdown. This is how you start the drawing here. And once you get all your perspective and composition right, then you go into adding values and gray tones. Nice down shot here for an architectural drawing. New York University Law Center. The Eggers and Higgins architects had to have this drawing done by someone. Nice drawing there. This is an oil painting down the bottom. So learning perspective and composition are two things that go hand in hand. Here's a drawing of Doom. This is for the Shell Oil Company. Harry Marinsky did this drawing. It's two soldiers in a car going straight down to their doom, I guess. Anyway, here's how you figure out how to do the drawing. And he took a rectangle like this and he tilted it a little bit. And here he's figuring out all the perspectives on all the buildings. The vanishing points are way up and down here, way off the plane. So there are some really great books out there about perspective that you can get. This drawing by Ben Stahl, really nice. The Lord was their shepherd for the John Hancock Mutual Life Insurance Company. Okay. But a nice drawing of the church with the steeple going up and people walking towards the church. So these are things that you can look at in magazine pictures or take pictures of buildings yourself and then go over them. You can print it out and then go over with a red pencil to figure out all the perspective lines. Here's how to do furniture. Still Life with Fruit Basket by Cezanne. This is from way, way back. And here's the sketch breakdown of it. Somebody took the time to just do a drawing of the outline of all the items in there and figure out the different points of view that are in the picture, because it's not all one. He combined different points of view here. So check it out and see what you come up with. I'll put the titles and authors' names in the description so you can look up these books and see if you can still get them. In the meantime, just keep drawing.